בסדר. So those of you who were here on Rosh Hashanah heard me tell the story of how I took my 16-year-old son on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. Yes, the Camino de Santiago, and how I learned all kinds of things about pilgrimage from that. And I was telling whoever was here about walking and about that experience of walking for 101 kilometers and what that did to us. And then on Rosh Hashanah, when we read from the Torah, we read about walking. We read Lech Lecha. And today, I'd like to talk for a second about arriving at the holy site. And that will be our Torah portion. It's called Ki Tavo, which means when you arrive, when you come. So on the very beginning of the last day of our walk of the Camino, Matan, is Matan here? Where's Matan? No, he's late. Not yet arrived. Ay, ay, ay. He's walking. Matan hurt his leg. He thought he had maybe broken the side of his foot. Yes, we still had 30 kilometers to walk. So those of you who know my son, my eldest, will know that he powered through, that's exactly what happened. And he was limping. He was limping hard and wincing part of the time, but walking. And by the way, most people on the Camino are limping. That's the truth. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Everybody's, because it's really hard to walk that long. But we were walking, making our way somehow up through these forests and then these little towns, and finally up into the city of Santiago, and walking up the mountain to it's kind of at the top of the mountain where the cathedral is. Those of you who have been there, and you feel this crazy sense of excitement. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling an elation that's about to pop. That's kind of what it's like. And then you're walking through these narrow cobblestone streets, and suddenly the whole view opens up, and you're in this gorgeous, enormous square, about maybe 30 times the size of this room, and it's right in front of the cathedral, and you know you've arrived. You're there, and an intense feeling of happiness just takes over your entire being. Both of us, our selfies are like, the smile is like pouring out of us, and everybody there. It's like you're there with hundreds of other pilgrims, and everybody's feeling that. Yeah, it's kind of extraordinary. So by that time, as soon as we arrived, we had already completed 2 of the 3 mitzvot, the 3 commandments of Jewish pilgrimage that the Talmud lays out. These 3 are simcha, you guys can say simcha, chagiga. Those 2 mean happiness and celebration. Done. We did it. Yeah. But actually, what I'd like to tell you before we take out the Torah is about the moment in which I felt something like completing the 3rd mitzvah, which is considered the most important one, which is called re'iyah. Re'iyah. You could say re'iyah. Re'iyah means to see or to be seen. And it's related to that the moment we read this moment last week in the Torah, when Avraham arrives in the Holy Land, and there he sees God for the first time. He'd heard him before. He'd heard his voice, I guess, so to speak, but he'd never seen him. And it's at that moment that he really arrives. So it's related to that. So I can go back for a second to the Camino. I took Matan to the hotel, dropped him off there with some ice, and then I took myself back to the cathedral. And I went to visit the source of this whole story, this whole operation of what's called the Jacobean way, the Jacobean way, the way of St. James, you may have heard. St. James, that's who we were walking towards. St. James was one of Jesus's disciples, and but really James in Hebrew is Yaakov. He's Jacob, and he was a disciple of this radical rabbi named Jesus. And the whole time, we were walking, Matan and I were kind of imagining talking to what would this guy have to say to us, and we were reading parts of the Gospel of James. We were just curious about who we're walking towards, and so then here we are in front of his grave, and I just have to say one thing, which is that it's 100% clear to me that the entire story about St. James being buried there is complete gobbledygook. It makes no sense at all. They say that his students took 50 years after he died, took his remains on this little tiny boat through the Mediterranean and around the whole coast of Portugal, came into Spain against the river, and arrived 30 kilometers where we started that day from Santiago, and then walked it later. And 500 years later, some shepherd was guided by the stars to the gravesite, and then around that they built a cathedral, and then they built a city, and then we all came. I'm telling you, it's like, and the amazing thing is, and this is really maybe the core of all religion for me. The amazing thing is, it makes no difference whatsoever. We're not talking about historicity. We're not. We're doing something else here. Because I'm telling you that when I arrived there to entered that cathedral and walked behind this kind of crazy golden altar and down the steps, down underground into this underground crypt where there's the gravesite, I felt entirely there. And that's what I want to tell you about. I want to tell you about that moment that happened to me there, which makes me emotional just thinking about, even though I don't know exactly what it was. But what happened was, I'm going to try and describe this because it has to do with prayer, which is what we're here to do. And nobody knows, just like that poem at the beginning, nobody knows exactly what it is or exactly how to do it or why. I don't think. Maybe some people do. But I prayed there in a way that I had never experienced. Over the summer, a friend of mine called me up from her mother's graveside. She was there to pray for what she really needed. She was in a tough spot, and she needed to pray, and she went to her mother's grave. And she called me up and she said, help me out. I don't know what to do. How do I pray? And in that moment, I answered her kind of very differently to when other times that people tell me what is prayer. In this moment, I said, it's very straightforward. You have to speak from your heart, and you have to ask for the deepest wishes that you have, and you have to share with your mother or God or whoever it is that you think you're talking to, or the nobody that you think you're talking to. You have to share with them the brokenness that you're experiencing, and the desires, and your deepest hopes and dreams. And so that's what I did, basically. I went down on my knees in front of Yaakov, my brother, and I went one by one over each of the people I love most in the world, and just prayed for them, for what I thought they each needed one by one, by one, by one, taking as much time as it takes. And when I was done with the people I love, I broke into tears for my homeland and what it had become, and I begged for some kind of undeserved deliverance. I prayed for a new path for this country that we live in, and I beseeched God or Yaakov or my ancestors or whoever it was that I was communicating with to help me and those I love. Please heal. Please protect. Please happiness. Please goodness. Please peace. We are about to take the Torah out, and that's a holy moment. It's a moment for connecting with our deepest desires, needs, wishes. So I invite you to bring that into the space. A lot of prayer is getting over inhibitions. I invite you to try, see if you can. We're going to take some moments to pray for a few specific things, but the entire time that you'll see these gorgeous young people chanting from the Torah and not so young people, the entire time, consider it a time to connect with what's inside and what you want for this coming year. And with that, I invite you to please rise.